Two destructive hurricanes could end up having a real impact on how voters and how many voters cast a ballot this year. Already, officials in North Carolina and Florida are racing to implement new procedures designed to make it easier to vote after Hurricane Helene and Milton tore through those states. Together, Florida and North Carolina have 46 of the 270 electoral votes needed to win. I want to bring in former Florida Republican Congressman and MSNBC political analyst David Jolly. Also with us, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. So, Lisa, federal judges declined to extend voter registration deadlines in Florida and Georgia in spite of the storms that were there. What's the legal argument for not extending?
I think the legal argument for not extending is there are still opportunities to register. So, for example, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said on Monday, which was Florida and Georgia's voter registration deadline, people can still register online. There are no impediments to doing so. Now, you and I both know that if you're fleeing what was expected to come with Hurricane Milton, you've already been through Helene. As you're racing away from your home, from your community, the first thing on your mind is not going to be, oh, I forgot to register to vote. Let's go online and do it right now. But that was indeed one of the arguments that was made in court in Florida earlier this week when the voting rights groups asked for a preliminary injunction to move that voter registration deadline.
What was their argument that was rejected?
The argument that was rejected was people didn't have enough of an opportunity, that boards of elections were closed, that people couldn't access, for example, phone lines or even mail services. In Georgia in particular, it was really limited to showing the impact on voter registration efforts by two voting rights groups, the NAACP of Georgia and the New Georgia Project, saying we couldn't canvass, we couldn't run our usual voter registration drives. We didn't register a single voter out of one of our offices this week in that area, as compared with 2,000 people that we helped register in the rest of the state during that same time period. And yet that wasn't convincing enough to a judge who in Georgia decided yesterday that wasn't going to happen.
They're not giving up. The Georgia NAACP, a couple of other special interest groups say they're going to fight this. What options do they have?
Well, they could appeal. So in federal court, if you're denied an injunction, that is one basis on which you can file a mid-case appeal, or what's called an interlocutory appeal. I actually checked the docket for the 11th Circuit United States Courts of Appeals. That's actually where both Florida and Georgia feed into. I don't see either of those cases having gone onto an appellate docket yet, but that doesn't mean that they won, and so we'll just have to wait and see.
So, Congressman, in battleground North Carolina, 8% of eligible voters were impacted by Hurricane Helene, and a lot of those are in rural areas, Republican areas. That's according to Axios. Is the challenge larger for Donald Trump because of where so many of his voters are, rural areas, where it might be harder, for example, to get to a polling place?
Look, it may be. I guess the answer to that question is unknown. I mean, it goes against a macro trend, though, that we know, which is the more people who vote, Democrats do better. I mean, we know that from presidential elections. More people vote, Democrats do better. And so you see in Republican-held states, including Florida, that Lisa mentioned, the suppression of voter registration opportunities because Republican states want fewer voters to vote. That's just the reality of the trend. And I think there are a few dynamics in play here, Chris. You have the voter mentality, the real life experience where they're now not thinking about the election. That in itself is a distraction. If a state of emergency has been declared, it probably means that the residents there are not thinking about the election. They're not thinking about registering. You have candidates who the momentum just froze when these storms hit, whether they were Republican or Democrats. Candidates with momentum now, that has frozen, and that matters down ballot for congressional and Senate races. And then you have the question of the administration of elections. What is fair in the case where a county, in the case of Florida on Monday, when Governor DeSantis said it's not a problem, he was also declaring 51 counties to be under a state of emergency. So if it's under a state of emergency for your livelihood, probably it should be for your franchise as well, but most Republican governors don't see it that way.
Yeah, you know, I was actually thinking that what we saw was that they stopped campaigning, right, in North Carolina, for example. Yeah. You're not going to do that. It feels inappropriate. I think it's going to start back up in the next day or two. But in some ways, that is an equalizer, right? Not good for Trump, not good for Harris. Having said that, it doesn't stop when it seems like, again, the attention goes away. People are starting to get things organized. It's still not the priority that a lot of people are going to have. And as much as we all want to say there's no more important thing than exercising your democratic right to vote, there's also a reality there.
Yeah, and look, the three of us and viewers right now are what we call high propensity voters. You're likely to vote if it's physically possible. That's not true of every voter. That's a very small subset of voters. You have medium propensity and low propensity voters. So how does this disruption of someone's life affect a low propensity voter? They're probably not going to vote unless they're really persuaded about the importance of it. And that's where I mentioned the momentum just stopped. It's almost as though the elections ended in the parts that were hit very hard, including my home community in the state of Florida. And so it is very hard to campaign down the stretch for the next 3 weeks. If we're just raw, honestly, about the calculation here, Florida was not quite a swing state, but Democrats had momentum. Is that now out of reach for good? Maybe, maybe not. I think Democrats will still run it through the finish line and see in Florida. But in Georgia and North Carolina, every vote matters for the presidential candidates, and they're going to have to get out in the aftermath of these storms and still reach voters to come out for them.